actually will loan you free of charge telescopes for a few months to try out. So that's kind of a cool thing. And so there's actually a link here to our web page where we talk about all that, and you can contact our lead, Ed Rumsey, and about borrowing a telescope from the club. So check into that. I also want to point out that we publish a monthly newsletter with astronomy news, and you can go to our website also. And Mike, if you will put the link to that in the chat, so you can copy and paste these links directly into your browser address window. It'll take you directly there to either the Loanerscope program or to our latest newsletter. In our current October edition, we have navigating a special article on navigating the October night skies. So kind of what's up right now, so that you can go take a look at, plus other astronomy news that we put in there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we have, as part of our annual activities for memberships of the, or participating in the board of directors, we have elections coming up. And so this month we're identifying a group of people to go find people who may want to run for the positions of president, vice president, corresponding secretary, and 4 of the board members at large. So far we have 3 volunteers, and if anyone else would like to take the place of one of these volunteers or compete for one of these volunteers positions, whose job it is to go find people to run for office, because it's a non-paid work position, so you have to donate your time. Please just signify now, or we'll just go with the volunteers we have. Okay, next slide. We have a merchandise store. Mike, if you will put the link into the chat for anyone who wants a hat or something like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt with a club logo on it, we sell those too. Okay, and then my next slide. So I put in a bunch of interesting astronomy items. So here's a beautiful mosaic video of zooming in to the central black hole at the center of the Milky Way. If you'll start that video for me, Mike. So here's another nice one. I found this really interesting one on the solar cycle of the sun. Nice little couple-minute video. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So many people don't know the sun's has magnetic poles, just like the Earth does, a North Pole and a South Pole, but every 11 years they flip. And the pole and the magnetic field lines inside the sun actually wind up tighter and tighter and tighter until they actually break and flip. And when the sun becomes very active, which by the way is called space weather, and there's a whole department in the Air Force whose job it is to watch the activity of the sun, because not only does it have more sunspots, but it throws off more particles from the sun, so called the solar wind, which are dangerous for both astronauts in like the International Space Station, or satellites that are high up in orbit around the Earth that are far enough out where they aren't fully protected by the magnetic field of the Earth. So that's a cool one. So now if you'll give me the next little astronomy tidbit. Okay. So if you will, when you play this one, Mike, if you will put it on loop, which on a PC, that's a right click, pulling up a menu that allows you to select loop. Yeah, thank you. And then start the video because it's very short. And so this was done by an amateur astronomer in Israel, I believe, and he did it with a 8-inch telescope, a very conventional 8-inch telescope. He's gotten so Mars has been very close to the Earth, closest it'll be in the next couple years, and so under fairly high magnification, which you have to do for planets, you can actually show a fairly significant amount of detail. And then by getting high signal to noise ratio pictures, you can actually then go in and accentuate it with post-processing. So this is a 3-hour time lapse. He also, this particular fellow also did a 4-hour one. So this is a 3-hour period of time, and he takes 1,000 frames over that period of time, but then he sums up or throws out frames to get okay, I see that question popped up, that about the apparent yellowish spot on the lower left. That's actually the polar ice cap of the Martian, I'm not sure if it's the North or South Pole on Mars, and that is frozen carbon dioxide and water ice. So that's really, I think, is a very amazing quality picture, partly made possible by the closeness of Mars, where at the point where it's the Mars orbit and Earth's orbit bring them the closest together, and he's got some very good skies, so they're very stable. So I found that very interesting. I know that several of our other members have been taking pictures of Mars recently, And I thought I would throw this up there to kind of inspire them to consider making videos on top of this, because this is not a crazy large, this is a fairly conventional camera, a ZAO 178, and the mount and the telescope are nothing super spectacular, out of the ordinary. So a number of our people, I think, would be capable of taking pictures of this quality. Okay, next slide. Continuing with the Mars, I gave a presentation a while back where I spoke at some length about the NASA's InSight lander. So they're doing, they placed a seismometer on the surface of Mars looking at the interior. So the mission is looking at the interior of Mars. They're looking at Marsquakes with this seismometer, and they are burying a device here called the mole that digs itself into the ground to measure the temperature gradient in the surface. So they're trying to actually get an idea of the heat flow through the planet to try to identify if the core is warm and molten like ours, or if it's totally, now they know it's not totally molten. That might be, they're looking to see if it has any degree of molten nature. Anyways, the mole, you may remember a while back, got stuck as it went into the ground, and they were trying to use what you see, the thing in white here with the little shovel on the end, was trying to push the mole down into the ground. And after they had pulled it all the way out, and the little ribbon thing on the side is actually the electrical cable that runs to the mole that causes it to dig, and they use it to take measurements with it. So anyways, it was actually able to dig itself in. So that was kind of a major advance, overcoming a really difficult problem for the Mars InSight lander. By the way, you can go to their website, type in NASA InSight lander, and they also put up daily weather reports for Mars. So you can find out what is the high temperature, the low temperature, the wind speed on Mars that day, which is really kind of a cool thing to get. So, okay, next slide. So a little update on the TESS program. I'll talk a little bit after we run this video, Mike.
TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, is NASA's newest planet hunter. The mission has operated for 2 years and has now mapped about 75% of the sky. This enormous area of coverage gives scientists unprecedented opportunities to search for new worlds beyond our solar system, as well as other cosmic phenomena. TESS completed its initial sky survey in July 2020. This giant mosaic is made from 26 sector images. Each sector is a 24 by 96 degree strip of sky monitored by TESS's 4 cameras for about a month. Here are some of the noteworthy discoveries from TESS's second year. TESS discovered a trio of planets around GJ 357, a red dwarf star just 31 light-years away. The system's farthest planet, with about 6 times Earth's mass, is especially intriguing. It orbits in the outer part of the star's habitable zone. If this planet has an atmosphere thick enough to keep its surface warm, liquid water could exist there. TESS found another planetary trio around the star L98-59. The innermost world is the littlest found by TESS and is 20% smaller than Earth. Later, scientists announced TESS had observed a star being torn apart by a black hole. Catching one of these tidal disruption events showcases the mission's ability to spot many kinds of short-lived phenomena, like stellar outbursts and supernovae, underscoring TESS's importance for studies beyond exoplanets. In early 2020, scientists announced TESS's first Earth-sized planet orbiting in its star's habitable zone. This world, called TOI 700d, is a little larger than Earth and probably rocky. Based on TESS and Spitzer data, researchers were even able to model potential weather systems. Analysis of the planet's atmosphere, if it has one, will have to await future space-based observatories like NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. Missions like TESS and later Webb help contribute to the field of astrobiology, the interdisciplinary research on the variables and conditions of distant worlds that could harbor life as we know it. TESS has found many systems very different from our own. TOI 1338 has a Neptune-sized planet orbiting a pair of stars. Kelt 9 has a fast-spinning star with hot poles and a cooler equator. Kelt 9b orbits over the poles, resulting in star-induced seasons that only last a few hours. Now that its primary mission is complete, TESS will return to the southern sky for another year-long survey. Many new planets, as well as more brief cataclysmic events, await astronomers as they scour the flood of TESS observations.
Good morning, welcome aboard. Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, bottom dog.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour. We do have a friend on board with us, Trimmer, the Apatosaurus. I think I was requested to do a backflip. Good night, Megan and Theo. And Karen and Jack.
MD Houston flight. Houston is go for undocking and departure.
Dragon is committed to undock.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. We are ready for the systems brief.
Copy. As stated, Dragon's in a healthy state. We are proceeding toward the primary landing site, and your timeline is current. Visual, 2 drogues out.
300 meters. We are braced for splashdown.
Copy, brace for splashdown. Endeavour, on behalf of the SpaceX and NASA teams, welcome back to planet Earth, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
It's a humbling experience to be a part of what was accomplished.
It's great to see how excited everybody was. We hope it brings a little bit of brightness to a pretty tough 2020.
Okay, so now that's kind of the end of my little space segments from the news. And now what I have is several pictures from some of our team members who are club members, I should say, who do these absolutely spectacularly beautiful images they collect with their home telescope. And you can see the description of the telescope and camera on the right there, as well as the types of filters they use and how many images that they have collected. And you can tell. So first, I want to thank Carl Weber for providing this picture. He's very good at generating so many of these things. And I see one of the comments here, which is that these are gorgeous. And I absolutely agree. There's a kind of a couple ways you can enjoy astronomy. There is the whole science, how neat it is to think about what that is that you're doing and looking at. And then there's just the beauty and the aesthetics. And this is just gorgeous. There's so many things out in the sky that are just beautiful. So this picture took Carl almost 29 hours of camera time. in the several different spectral filters and uh, special emission lines where excited sulfur, oxygen, and hydrogen glow at, that he has combined to make this picture and process it. So just wanted to show that. And then Mike, if you go to the next image. I want to thank Alan Ruckel for providing this one, which sometimes, we don't pay much attention to the moon. And there's actually a whole lot to see there. And so Alan had taken this picture and I got him to send it to me with which he collected from his home telescope and this too has its own quite different kind of beauty. This one almost kind of reminds me of the beauty of looking in the local deserts, how it's kind of stark but beautiful in its simplicity and its starkness. So I think that's another very gorgeous image. We have so many members of our club that spend a lot of time collecting pictures, and it's kind of my little mission in life to pry it from their hands and share it with the rest of our club and the world of all the great work that they've done. So and now on to the next image. And for this one, I want to thank AC Woods, who sent me the Pleiades. So this is also known as Messier 45, a nearby star cluster with a little gas, and also shown on the side there. This one is much shorter because it's a much brighter object. In fact, you can see the Pleiades star cluster, or sometimes called the Seven Sisters, with your eye, with no telescope. Or with a pair of binoculars. It's also really it's a very easy, accessible object. And the majority of this picture are actually just regular red, green, blue color bands, but in filters that he has had separate put on his monochrome camera. So, and this is only a much shorter exposure, only half hour. Of course, the moon on the previous one, I didn't actually get the exposure time, but I'm sure it's got to be less than a minute because the moon is even brighter still than the Pleiades. Okay, and with that picture, I want to now go to our next slide and introduce our speaker for the evening, Mia de los Reyes from Caltech. And she is going to be speaking to us about the loneliest galaxies in the universe.